Business is changing, which is why at Ford, when we say our commercial vehicles are built for business, we mean it. Our new Transit range is still tough, still powerful, and always dependable. But it now has the brains to match its superior brawn, with an even wider range of innovative features, smart technologies, and greater efficiency. It's designed to work as hard as you do. And with Ford Innovate driving better value, you can get 3.9% APR, a 5-year warranty, and a €2,000 bonus on the new Ford Transit range. Your business deserves the best in the business. Choose Ford Transit, the future of commercial vehicles. Order now at your local participating Ford dealer and register by April 30th. Ford. Go further. Terms and conditions apply. See Ford.ie for details.
I just figured it out. I have a secret weapon. So let's say if the Penguins are playing the Islanders in the playoffs and they get behind or something, have Tavares show up in the crowd in the stands in one of the games. They'll be so preoccupied with like, what's he doing here? Hey, I hate that guy. But they won't even worry about they won't worry about the actual play. They'll just be preoccupied with Tavares.
Well, I see two flaws there in this. Number one, I don't know why he would do that favor for the Penguins. And number two, I think he's also going to be busy.
He's kind of busy, yeah. Okay, I'll have to go back to the drawing board. But still.
Maybe you could have like a cardboard cutout of John Tavares.
Yes. Oh, that's it. Okay. New plan. Everybody in PPG Pates Arena gets a John Tavares mask.
Oh, that's tremendous. That's the giveaway.
Yes, giveaways. Instead of one of those white T-shirts, give away a Tavares mask.
That's beautiful. That's one of the best things I've ever heard. The Islanders would be so upset.
The Donut Bag is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smart way to buy and resell tickets. It takes confusion out of buying tickets. They put a 0 to 10 score on each ticket to let you know if you're getting a good or bad deal. Use promo code DONUTBAG to get $20 off your first purchase. Go to SeatGeek.com or get the SeatGeek app. SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Donut Bag, part of the Pod Hub Network. In this episode, I welcome back Angie Carducci from Inside Hockey Magazine, and we talk about everything going on with the Penguins. They're coming off a big win to cement their playoff position, and we talk about how they look going into the playoffs. The Donut Bag starts right now. The Penguins with a huge win Sunday over the Hurricanes, cementing their standing in the playoffs. With me to talk about it is Angie Carducci from Inside Hockey Magazine. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Less than great. I'm battling a cold, just like I think 97% of the population right now. But
boy.
But luckily the Penguins are doing better. That win over Carolina was huge. If they lost that things get kind of dicey, because right now the Penguins have 97 points and the Hurricanes are coming on fast with 93. So it could have got a little scary with a few games left.
Right. I really didn't have a lot of fear of them dropping out of the playoffs entirely, but I think what gets really scary if you drop behind the Hurricanes is that then you're pretty firmly looking at wild card territory, and the teams these two wild cards are going to end up playing in the first round are most likely going to be Washington and Tampa. So I really don't know that you want one of those teams in the first round. I pretty much don't want any part of those two teams in the first round. So if the Penguins can get themselves a slightly better matchup, and at this point it's looking like it's probably going to be the Islanders, and I would take that as a first round probably any day over those two teams.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think it's inevitable that the Penguins will play the Capitals at some point in these playoffs, but I'd much rather play them in the second round than in the first round. And yeah, if you I think if they eventually get to Tampa, I think that would be a really good series, but not in the first round. That would be a disaster.
Oh, exactly. I think if you're going to play one of those teams, you'd like to sort of ramp up along the way and go in on a really good streak of confidence that you feel like you're playing your best hockey. So, going in sort of warming up, as it were, for a series or two. Although I feel like the Penguins have pretty much been warming up throughout the month of March, but really ramping it up with actual playoff hockey and feeling like you're hitting your stride. That's the way you want to meet a team like a Washington or a team like Tampa, who has just been sailing along, looking like they don't have a whole lot of weaknesses all season long. Really not in the first round. I don't think that's where you want to confront a team like that.
Right, right. I am so excited about this Penguin team going into the playoffs. I think that this is one of the most well-equipped teams. We're talking about a team that's won a couple cups just a few years ago, but still, they just seem so prepared for the playoffs.
Well, I feel like for the whole season, Mike Sullivan's been talking about this idea of trying to find their identity and being a team that's hard to play against. And earlier in this season, every time he said it, it felt like it was almost a wish. Like, well, I really hope we figure this out. I really hope we find this at some point. And for the last several weeks, I feel like the Penguins have been finding that. And he made a comment after one game, how he really felt like they were coming together as a team. And he made that comment in one of those clips where they were sort of gathering in the room, handing out the Warrior helmet after a game. And I heard him say that and thought, wow, that just phrases it perfectly to me, because that's the feeling I'm getting watching this team. I feel like earlier in the season, you had a bunch of individuals who really weren't meshing together. And now I feel like they've really clicked. And maybe it's a lot, Jim Rutherford deserves a lot of credit. He never stopped tinkering with this lineup all season. And it really, at some points, made you wonder if he had a plan or if this was just desperation and if it was kind of aimless. But he really seems to have figured it out in terms of what the roster should look like, and has found this mix of players that is really working for them, and just kind of a neat infusion of a couple of AHL players that have stepped in and some new players, fresh blood from other teams. And I just really feel like they are in fact clicking as a team right now.
It's amazing, and I think Sullivan deserves a lot of credit. Earlier in the year, you're right. It just looked bad. I think you nailed it. It was just a collection of individuals that were just doing their thing, and they played well when they felt like it. If it was a November game against Vancouver, like, who cares? But if it was,
Exactly.
if they're playing the Capitals, it's like, okay, we're gonna kick these guys' butts, and it looks. Heck, I think in February there was one point that they were out of the playoff picture.
Yep.
And
That's
they
not
just,
that long ago. It's crazy.
exactly, and they just turned it on. And I think the turning point was that outdoor game against Philadelphia, that Letang and Dumoulin go out, and first of all, that game alone, just them sticking it out, under those terrible circumstances, and even though they didn't win, still, they fought well. But after that, it just seemed like they decided to come together. It's like, oh crap, we can't just rely on Letang doing things. We need to all get together here, and it just seemed to all come together then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I look at that as a definite turning point, and I look at another thing that I really look at is the big trade that brought in Jared McCann and Nick Bukestad and shipped out a guy who, like when you look at Derek Brassard, it kind of struck me. It strikes me when you have a player who you really kind of got the feeling toward the end of his tenure that he just really didn't want to be here. And you bring in guys who are really buying in and are excited to be part of it, and wanting to be part of the team. I feel like that team mentality, and not to pin that, on any one player. And I think he was, unfortunately for him, asked to play a little bit outside of his comfort zone and his preferred role, and just didn't really fare very well with that. But when you have a collection of players who really want to be where they are and are excited to be part of what they're part of, I just feel like that really makes a difference too. And I think you can kind of see that on the ice. So that idea of sort of banding together as a team that you described in the Philly game too, really just to me, I think it's partly the mentality and partly like the collection of personnel that you have right now.
It's so true. You can't blame Rutherford for trading for Brassard because at the time
Oh,
when they
I
got
was
him,
really excited. I thought
yeah,
it's a great deal. Yeah,
yeah,
well,
yeah, exactly. Everybody
I
did.
thought
It's
he,
like, oh my God, I can't believe we got this guy. And
yeah,
it just,
they gave up
I,
a ton. I mean, that was brutal, but yeah, it was pretty exciting seeing that
yeah,
landed.
and and they tried to make it work, and for whatever reason it didn't. But when they got Bukestad and McCann, it, it's almost like a puzzle that just all came together.
Yeah,
Bukestad was that third line center, and he fit perfectly.
absolutely. And you even and Jared McCann, that's a guy that's been at his young age has been passed around to two other teams. Like how? You just look at that. Like how has this guy made it as to the Penguins at this point in his young career that this potential has somehow not been tapped into prior to now, and that's crazy to me. And even a guy like I think a lot of times about how a couple of years ago the Penguins had sort of what was fun about that first Stanley Cup win of the recent ones, 2016, was when they brought in like Justin Schultz and Carl Hagelin and Phil Kessel. And it was that idea of sort of the collection of misfits, these guys that just didn't quite fit with their old teams and they came in and they just found a home and it all worked. And you look at Bukestad McCann, and then even a guy like Eric Goodbranson stands out to me as that guy, when the Penguins traded for him, everybody was shaking their head like, this is terrible.
Exactly.
Look at his stats. And I would be hard pressed to really criticize him too. There's been a couple of games where I've been like, oh, not his best game. But as a whole, since he's joined the team, I find it very hard to be as critical of him as I would have liked to have been when they made that deal for him. And that's a guy who wasn't really getting the opportunity, in Vancouver. And I think you just look at sort of that collection of players that other teams decided for some reason weren't fitting in and have found a home in this lineup. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting. You know, even from a couple years ago, even from a year ago, there's a lot of new players: McCann, Bluger, Bukestad, uh, Jack Johnson, Goodbranson, Pedersen. There's a pretty good turnover for a team that's pretty well established.
It's a pretty enormous amount of turnover when you think about it. And, a lot of credit again to Jim Rutherford for that, because I think it's pretty easy to look at okay, we've won two Stanley Cups in, 2016 and 17 with largely the same group. And it would be very easy to look at that group and say, we're not going to change it. We're not going to significantly change this group. We knew what worked and we're not going to mess with it. And to have that much turnover and say, okay, here's what's not working. And I'm just going to go out and go big and try to make whatever moves I feel like we need to make this team better. I know Jack Johnson's been a lightning rod, but obviously they felt they needed to shore up the defense, and that's somebody he identified, and they went and did that. I think Marcus Patterson's been an absolute home run, and that's a guy who, again, you got for a player like Derek Brassard, who just, in Daniel Sprong, who really just wasn't working out with the Penguins. And I think he's going to be a great talent in the National Hockey League, but it wasn't going to happen here. So, trade away the part that wasn't working. Hopefully they find success somewhere else and get the piece that you need. And that was a guy I hadn't heard a lot about before he came to Pittsburgh. And that's been a fantastic move. And then guys like Teddy Bluger or Adam Johnson, who's just come up recently, I think have brought a lot of, along with McCann too, have brought so much speed back to this team, which is something they have really been missing. And I feel
Yeah.
like they have slipped a good amount. So that's been fun to see the Penguins kind of become a speedier team again, because for a little while there, they have lost a step, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And